Is the chat on? I'm not seeing any comments. There we go. It's on now. Hey Tasneem, first person in. Kind of an odd time to go on, but sometimes I'll think I'm gonna wait for a better time. Hey Jose, and then by the time that better time comes, I don't feel like talking about the thing anymore. So I'm gonna do it while I feel like talking about it. Hey Dallas, Louisiana, great to see you. You see what I'm talking about today? 2,700 plus evangelicals, I think I've read it's over 3,000 now, have signed a letter urging Christians to take the vaccine, among other things. So since they signed it publicly, I'm going to address it publicly. Man, I feel like my viewership's capped. I wonder if it's because I put vaccine in the title. It's at 75. It's dropped down to 61. Not quite reaching 100. It's going up now. We'll see. I left COVID out. A lot of people on from South Africa and Uganda and stuff. I noticed you guys aren't too keen on some of the countries in Africa have already barred Bill Gates' vaccine before it's even developed. If it stays at 85, I'm going to start over with a different title. It's creeping up. Probably should have left the vaccine out. You know what? I'm going to do it. There's 95. We'll hit 100. I'll do it. Your people are in church. So that could be it. Share the broadcast if you would. Lose a few friends today. Okay. So let's get going. Hey, Mimi, Lori. Glad to have you on wherever you're watching from. I saw that, Russ. They're gonna address that on Check the News tonight. All right, so the Christian Post did an article that 2,700, and I've read now it's up because the article's a few days old, that over 3,000 evangelicals have warned against politicizing coronavirus and urging Christians to take the vaccine as soon as it's ready. So I have some thoughts on that. I read the article. Particularly, I have 6 thoughts on it. Number 1, this is a quote from the article. A coalition of more than 2,700 high-profile, which first of all, if they were high-profile, you wouldn't need 2,700 people. Anytime you see a list of 3,000 people signing something, it's because they're all nobodies. Because, if you had a Billy Graham, you would just say Billy Graham is urging Christians to take the vaccine, or the Pope is urging Christians to take the vaccine, or whoever somebody that has some clout that can actually move the needle, as they call it, and could get Christians to take the vaccine. So one of the worst forms of persuasion, it's very similar to if you meet somebody who doesn't like Donald Trump and you say, what's the worst thing about Donald Trump? Oh, I could give you a ton of reasons. And then they start listing the reasons because none of them are that big of a deal. So then they just group up a bunch of reasons. So in my opinion, this is the people version of having a long list of reasons. You don't have any strong people. Because if you read through the list of people, I did, and I've been a Christian my whole life. I know Christians, and I don't recognize any of them. Except one who I'm going to deal with. A coalition of more than 2,700 high-profile evangelicals, which they're not, have signed a statement urging Christians to take a vaccine when it's ready. First of all, why do they need 27? Why does the Christian Post, why do they need 2,700 signatures? Why do they need to put this out? Because basically the plans, if there were plans to do mandatory vaccination in the United States, they're dead. because a CBS poll, and you know CBS isn't conservative, CBS is liberal mainstream media. A CBS poll said that 70% of Americans were not willing to take the vaccine. That's all Americans. So I'm sure, without seeing any studies, just from knowing Christians, I'm sure that it would, if it's 70% among Americans, among Christians, they would be very resistant to taking a vaccine. So I noticed that Bill Gates met, I think it was in Oxford, I could be off on the university, that they went to Oxford to discuss a couple weeks back how they can get Americans to be more receptive of a vaccine for coronavirus. So I find it interesting that right after they had that meeting, now there's articles being launched to try to persuade Christians to take a vaccine when it's ready. I'm not going to go into my personal beliefs on vaccines other than to say I think people should be allowed to take a vaccine, and I think if people don't want to, I'm not for forcing people to do anything. We don't do forced conversions in Christianity. I'm for personal freedom. So 70% of Americans are against the vaccine, likely much higher in evangelical solutions. What's the solution? In their mind, to get 2,700 nobodies to urge Christians to comply. And then there's an organization that's behind it that I looked up called BioLogos, which is trying to merge science and Christianity. And they're the ones behind the signature. Again, a group that nobody's heard of. So, number two, here's another quote. This is a quote from the article from BioLogos and the people this is what those 2,700 people signed, which I guess is now over 3,000. It's acceptable for Christians to be skeptical of claims by scientists made outside their area of expertise. But they should believe scientists anytime they make claims inside their area of expertise. So again, they said in the article, it's acceptable for Christians to be skeptical of claims made by scientists outside their area of expertise. But anytime scientists make claims inside their area of expertise, you should believe them. Now, first of all, they're touting one scientist that signed this thing, who he has nothing to do with vaccines. His name is, I wrote it down, William Phillips, and he won a Nobel Prize for trapping atoms with laser lights. Well, I'm sure he's much more intelligent than I am. But you being good in one area of science doesn't mean you know anything about another area of science. Trapping atoms with laser lights has nothing to do with vaccines. That would be like saying two people are explorers, you know, or this guy's an explorer. What kind of, and he's speaking on going to Mars. Has he ever done space travel? No. Has he ever studied space travel? No. He's a sea explorer. He's one of the best sea explorers there ever were. Well, then I would listen to him if he's talking about boats or the ocean, but I'm not going to listen to him about space travel just because he's an explorer. He's explored the seas, not explored space. So that's my thought on that. Number two, or on that second point, we should always listen to scientists. They're telling Christians they should always listen to scientists as long as they're speaking within their area of expertise. How many times have scientists changed their guidance during COVID-19 since March? Were we not told that masks do nothing to help in March and there's no reason for a healthy person to wear a mask? Am I taking crazy pills, or were we all told that by Dr. Fauci, considered by scientists not to be a leading expert, but to be the leading expert, don't wear masks? Were we not told that? And then were we not told a couple months later that the science on masks, apparently, that had been studied for a long time, decades, all of a sudden it changed in 2 months and we should all wear masks? Now, if you change your guidance on masks and say the science has changed, that's fine, because I can take a mask off, I can put a mask on. But if you rush out a vaccine and I take it, And then you tell me, you know what? It turns out that rushing out the fastest vaccine in world history and scuttling all of the proper controls and tests that we normally do in order to follow Operation Warp Speed and get a vaccine out as soon as we possibly can, it turns out that was a bad idea. Well, if you didn't know what you were talking about masks, then I can take it off my face. If you didn't know what you were talking about something I'm injecting into my body, I can't uninject it from my body. So you guys in the scientific community have gone back and forth so much. You know, I mean, I'm trying to stay out of full-out mocking mode, but it's going to be difficult. Because basically anytime I watch television, as soon as they go to commercial break, I am offered some type of pharmaceutical on a commercial, followed by a second commercial offering me to sue that same company for the medication that they made last year that now is having women give birth to children with defects. Were you born with a third arm? Are you blind from taking this certain medication that was approved by the FDA and all the top scientists, but now a year later we had to change the warning labels and then eventually just take it off the market? Call this number and be a part of a class action lawsuit. Am I the only one that's seen that? Russ said scientists used to say smoking was good for you. That's true. 4 out of 5 doctors recommend this brand of cigarette. So, I mean, for you to tell us we should trust scientists as long as they're speaking in their area of expertise, not buying it. Number 3, they actually had the nerve to put this in the article. I'm quoting, "We lament the times when science and medicine have been misused to perpetrate atrocities like the Tuskegee experiments. But you should listen when they speak in their area of expertise." So they actually, I mean, whoever wrote this article is a moron. I'm talking about not the article for the Christian Post, but whoever wrote the paper, because why would you bring up you basically brought up the lock, stock, and barrel reason why no one should ever trust you. The Tuskegee experiment. It'd be like saying, it'd be like if I was a leader, but I had killed millions of my followers. It's like, Jonathan should always be listened to. We lament that Jonathan has killed millions of his followers. But other than that, you should listen to him. Because you're citing, anybody by the show of an emoji hand ever heard of the Tuskegee experiment? I had heard of it. I knew about it roughly. But I looked it back up. This is not from a conspiracy website. This sounds like something that would be like on a QAnon website. But it's on Wikipedia. It's like you can look it up anywhere. It's something that happened. Actually, President Bill Clinton, I think in 1997, had to apologize publicly for it. So I just wrote down a couple of things. From 1932 to 1972, blacks in the military, I think it was in the military only, black soldiers in the military were this is from 1932 to 1972, for 40 years, black soldiers in the military were offered free health care from the federal government. This was a federal government scientific study overseen by the federal government. Again, this is the Tuskegee experiments. You can look it up. They were purposely infected with syphilis. Numerous men died, 40 of their wives contracted syphilis, and 19 children were born with syphilis. What happened to the men that got it as well? Their central nervous systems collapsed. Syphilis is not like an easy death. Syphilis is like you lose your mind. It rots your mind. It attacks your central nervous system. Why did that happen? They didn't accidentally infect them with syphilis. The government wanted to study the long-term effects of untreated syphilis in men, so they offered free health care. The United States federal government offered free health care. Hey, how much is this vaccine going to cost? Good news, it's free. Brian Houston's really happy about that from Hillsongs, by the way. It's going to be free. It's a free vaccine coming. Praise God, our worries are over. Well, these guys were offered free vaccines or free health care. And it went on from 1932 to 1972. Black soldiers purposely infected with syphilis. It says numerous men died because over 40 years, I'm sure it was they just quit counting because they didn't care about them anyway. 40 wives, 19 children. That was overseen by the federal government. You want to know what else? You notice when you read it, it was carried out by numerous public health supervisors. Because remember, it was done over the course of 40 years. So what does that tell you? It wasn't like you had one bad apple in the federal government, in the scientist overseeing this. If it was done over 40 years, it was department-wide. And you want to know something? They didn't decide to end the study at the end of 40 years. There was a whistleblower who found out what was going on and leaked it to the Washington Star. I don't know if that paper's still in existence in Washington, D.C., and then it all came out, and they had to do away with the study. What was the penalty? The government paid the men $10 million. Do you think that's a lot of money to pay to all the victims? $10 million. Nobody went to jail. Nobody was charged with anything that oversaw it. If you read it, you can't find the name of like one scientist who helped carry that out. They just did $10 million, the federal government, they print their money for free anyway. Now, again, that was 1972. We're not talking about something that happened in 1619, 1706, and we're citing some old thing. We're talking about something that happened where the last guy that was affected by it just passed away in the early 2000s. That people that were connected to those people that are in charge are still in charge. Nobody went to jail. You want to hear another thing? In 2019, that's last year, the Rockefeller Foundation, who's behind several of these vaccines, was just found guilty of doing the same thing in Guatemala to people. So you notice, and all my African friends that are watching could tell you. So they said, well, we're not going to do this in America anymore. We've got whistleblowers and a somewhat free press. So we'll just go down to Guatemala and do it there where people are too poor to do anything about it. 2019. And these jackasses, 3,000 plus of them, are telling Christians you should unequivocally trust any scientist speaking in his area of expertise. And though we don't know anything about the vaccine that's going to come out, whenever it comes out, take it. Are you freaking kidding me? The nerve of these people to use the trust that God's given them over whatever people they lead. You're talking about an abuse of trust. Number 4. Here's another thing these geniuses wrote on this paper. Experts like Dr. Fauci should be listened to. Do you want to know what Dr. Fauci did a few days ago? He warned against taking this rushed out vaccine and thinks it's unwise how fast the United States is moving to try to get the vaccine out. Dr. Fauci said that. The expert they're citing that you should listen to told you not to do what they're telling you to do. You want to know how I know these people aren't that smart? Because I'm not that smart. And I could poke holes in this thing like first thing out of bed in the morning, which I'm doing right now. Number 5, they say in the letter that lockdowns and masks have helped. I'm not going to talk about masks. But for them to say that lockdowns have helped They were saying that Christians were against lockdowns and thought they should be able to go to church, but lockdowns are what have helped calm down the outbreak of COVID in the world. No, it hasn't. That is provably false. Who had the strictest lockdown? Probably Peru. Who had the loosest of the lockdowns? Probably Brazil. And if you watch their wave, if a place locks down, all it does is delay the inevitable. Okay, let's talk about this. Who had the strictest lockdown in the United States? New York and New Jersey. No question. Who had the loosest lockdown? South Dakota. Never did a stay-at-home order. A lot of the Midwestern states. Florida. Georgia. Tennessee. Who had the highest death rate by far in the world? New York and New Jersey. Mask mandate, total lockdown. And Georgia, Tennessee, Florida, South Dakota, it's not even close in deaths per capita. So for them to say that the scientific lockdowns worked, they're smoking crack. Alan said they did experiments on natives in Alaska and many other places. I didn't see that. But I believe you. So then let me just deal with the last thing. You know, the Bible tells you that if you have a problem with a brother, you go to him privately. That's in Matthew 18. But this is different because this is not a problem with a brother. This is another minister who has, a small degree of influence over Christians, but some influence, using that influence to tell Christians they need to stop thinking like they're thinking and instead take a vaccine. First of all, how do you promote a vaccine that it's not released yet? Whatever they tell you to take it. I mean, you're listening to somebody, A, that has a low IQ, or B, somebody that's being paid to promote something. It'd be like me telling you really need to go to this restaurant. What restaurant? Well, it hasn't been built or opened yet. But I'm telling you, when it does open and it's built, it's going to be really good for you to go there. How do you know? I'm just telling you. You need to listen to me. So either you're talking to a crazy person or you're talking to somebody that's being paid to promote something. Here's the questions I have with Brother Sammy. Number one, God bless you. Number one, if you look it up, you can Google Sammy Rodriguez, Pelosi, prophetic leadership. Sammy Rodriguez in the Washington Post is quoted at an event as saying, "I thank God for Nancy Pelosi's prophetic leadership during this time in our country." I have questions. I have questions when you, as a supposed spirit-filled, charismatic minister, praised Nancy Pelosi's prophetic leadership. However you define prophetic, it is linked to the Holy Ghost. So you believe that Nancy Pelosi's leadership in our country is spirit-filled and spirit-directed. You know, I have some questions for you. I have a lot of questions for you. Now, let's get down to the actual question I have about Sammy Rodriguez, because I was saying you're either of low intelligence or you're paid. So I did some digging. Sammy Rodriguez is part of the Evangelical Immigration Table. The Evangelical Immigration Table was exposed by Breitbart, or Breitbart, however you pronounce it. It's an article entitled "National Immigration Forum Funded by Soros and the Left." So, Sammy Rodriguez is not part of the National Immigration Forum. However, he's part of the Evangelical Immigration Table, which they've said on their website that the NIF facilitates their activities. The NIF is funded by the OSI, and the OSI is funded. Let's see who can guess it first. When you connect the dots, where do you think the money's coming from that funds the organization who funds the Evangelical Immigration Table? What billionaire openly funds the organization who facilitates? Good job, Aaron. You got it. You don't have to be a genius. Look, everybody's getting, wow. Bill Gates is not a bad guess, but it's George Soros. So, as soon as they reported that, the newspaper that is controlled by the Southern Baptist organization, because there were a bunch of Southern Baptists on it too, it's funny, they did a rebuttal that they're not, to show that they're not receiving money from George Soros, but they didn't even say that's not true. They just said it's disputed. Eric, how do you pronounce his last name? Metaxas, Eric Metaxas, I think it's called. I could have it wrong. He signed to be a part of the Evangelical Immigration Table and then withdrew his name and publicly said the reason he withdrew his name is he found out the organization's funded by Soros. I'm going to say that one more time because I've been rattling off a lot of stuff and it can just sound like, they call it getting in the weeds. It's just like a lot of words and you lose track. The Evangelical Immigration Table, of which Sammy Rodriguez is a part of, that was also joined by Eric Metaxas, who's very well respected. Last I knew, he had a program on TBN and best-selling author. He withdrew his name, and when people said, why are you withdrawing your name? He said, I found out it was funded by George Soros. So, with that being said, it's shameful, I'll just tell you, if those things are true, which I'm not making it, I'm telling you what's been reported by multiple news outlets. It's shameful. It's shameful to use your clout as a minister of the gospel to push a vaccine that's not even out yet. In fact, I was reading an article yesterday that whatever vaccine, they're going to use RNA technology. I don't know what RNA technology is, but I'll tell you the second thing that they said about RNA technology. They've never developed successfully a vaccine that uses RNA technology. This will be the first one they ever try. So tell me what your thoughts are on a new technology for a vaccine that's never been used, that'll be the most rushed out vaccine in world history, and then before they even finish or do the trials for it, which by the way, they need 30,000 people to do the trials. They've been having trouble getting more than 13,000 people to sign up because people won't even be a part of the trial. So I'm not saying what I'm saying because I'm concerned there's going to be mandatory vaccines. They're having trouble even getting a vaccine. Not to mention the virus at this point has pretty much burnt out in the United States. There's no hot zones in the United States anymore. So tell me, if you were a betting man, how do you think it's going to turn out with a vaccine that's using new technology that's never been used before, that's been rushed out faster than any vaccine before? Would you roll up your arm? I'd rather inject myself with heroin. At least I'd know what I'm getting. And that is my thoughts on 2,700 plus evangelical leaders telling all Christians they need to take the vaccine. I love you very much. Share the broadcast before you log off. Lose a few friends. I hope you know I really love you. That's why I do this video. I'm not doing it to be argumentative. I think it's really wicked to use the clout that God's given you to screw people over. That's how I feel. Love you. God bless you.